But you can go ahead.
All right, well, I'll call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Next, we have the public comment period. Anybody here speak to us? Any amendments to the board meeting agenda?
The only thing is when we get to it under item 8, we should flip A and B.
So we'll do the conflict waiver first.
Correct.
Okay. So we need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second, Madam
Motion
Chair.
by Danny, second by Steve. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the board minutes from July 20th, the meeting minutes.
Madam Chair, move to approve minutes as printed.
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Johnson, second by Commissioner Schmidt. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Don Duffner, Veteran Service Officer.
Good morning.
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 Morning, Don.
Don Duffner, I'm the Meeker County Veteran Service Officer, and I'm here to ask for approval of the resolution and grant agreement for the 2022 grant, outreach grant. Each year, we get a $10,000 grant from the State of Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs to use for outreach of different things that we could use. And it's listed on there of our outreaches, and it's figured by the amount of veterans we have. Right now, we're in that range where it's still at $10,000, so we get that every year. All that's based on that as long as I do complete my audit from the year before. So I've completed my audit in early June, and so now I'm coming to the board with that. We can use our grant money for supplies, outreach, newspaper ads, TV ads, which we used quite a bit of it, and even billboards once in a while too. So that's what we do, and then just to get people, more or less, to get our veterans into the office. Sometimes when they come in there, I always ask them, how'd you hear about our office? And most of the time it's by word of mouth, a friend telling a friend, hey, you need to come in there. Occasionally they'll see it on a billboard, or they'll see it on the radio or hear it on the radio. So just want to go over a couple things on, also it shows how the VA figures out how many veterans we have in this aspect. Since 2010, and I'm going to go backwards upward, and then 2010 we had 2,100 veterans. That's what the VA figures in for us, and that is really not, that's what, of the veterans that apply for benefits, that they would have some kind of information on. Otherwise, they don't have that kind of information. And we're getting veterans every day or every week. We're probably getting 1 or 2 veterans that come in and haven't even been in our office before. I should say probably about 3 or 4 a month is what we're really getting at. And now our population is all the way down to 1536. Last year we had about 78 veterans that we showed buried in our cemeteries out here. So that's where the drop continues to drop. There is no war going on, so there's not a lot of veterans going, or people going into service and getting the heck out. So, and that is our problem. Our problem population is our younger veterans also. They're like anybody, they come in after they've settled back home and all that, and some of them don't come in until they're 65, and all of a sudden they find out that hearing aids ain't covered by Medicare. So we have doing a really good job on enrolling of the veterans into the population, into the VA itself. Right now we're at about 57%, and normally if we get them into it, they like what they see at the VA, and the VA really does a good job up there. The St. Cloud VA was sitting at number 2 and number 1 for quite a few years, but I think they're within the top 7 right now still, which is really good in the nation. And then we also have some that are enrolled in the Minneapolis VA too. And then, the biggest thing about, is, the revenue coming back to the county, with veterans benefits in that aspect. And when I started in 2010, or 2012, it was $10.2 million. Now it's $20.17 million. And that is through different things, as in, including compensation, pension, healthcare benefits, education benefits, DIC, dependency indemnity compensation. And that, so they combine all that, and then the VA gives us their stats every year on how we're doing, how each county is, each state is doing also. So our financial impact really is we're in a $10,000 grant, and this doesn't cost us anything to use for all that.
Madam Chair, move to approve resolution number 2021-19 and grant agreement for 2022 Veterans Outreach Grant.
Madam Chair, I'll second that.
Motion by Paul Johnson, second by Commissioner Schmidt. Any more discussion or questions? Corey?
Roll call, Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Ober.
Yes. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Brian Cruz, County Sheriff.
So I don't see Brian here, but I can help out with covering these items. So the first is acceptance of anonymous donation. This is a partner donation to the one that was approved at our last meeting.
That's for the fixing up of the armored vehicle.
Correct, same project.
Okay, looking for a motion.
Go ahead. Madam Chair, I move to approve the acceptance of the anonymous donation in the amount of $10,000.
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Schiefelbein, second by Commissioner Schmidt. Any more discussion or questions?
Just once again, as last time we got a donation, let's just say thank you in case that person is observing us on YouTube or it's out there. So thank you to the anonymous donor.
Indeed, thank you.
Even if they ain't watching.
Even if they're not watching.
That's right, that's right.
Any other discussion?
Was it you? No.
All in favor? All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the employment status change of part-time correction officer Tim Oster to full-time.
Correct, full-time deputy, so moving from the jail into patrol side.
Okay. And this is, one of them, this isn't a new hire,
No,
this is a replacement.
this is a replacement, this is filling a vacant deputy position.
From a vacancy.
Correct.
Okay, looking for a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the, part-time corrections officer Tim Oster to a full-time deputy, level 9, step 1, effective August 4th.
Here, second.
Madam Chair, I'll second that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Schmidt, second by Commissioner Schiefelbein. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is to approve the hire of part-time corrections officer Daniel Frank, level B 22, step 1, $20.53 per hour, effective August 4th, pending successful exams. There you are. Brian's done with you. Go ahead.
You're early.
You're early.
Yeah.
I'm on time.
Okay.
I have a record to be here.
My apologies.
Go ahead. We passed the first two items. I don't know if you want to speak on those, Brian, or?
I can, that first one is just the second donation, followed from the first one we had last time for the armored vehicle, and then the status change, you covered that one?
Right, that was approved.
Yep. And that is actually the last open, full-time deputy position, so,
Well, that's good news, huh?
yeah, except I have a deputy who's looking and getting backgrounded somewhere else, so
Oh,
hopefully for a little while we'll be, yeah.
he's
And-
looking elsewhere to work.
It's a money thing, he's going to the metro.
Okay.
Yeah,
We're always gonna have that issue right now, I guess.
yeah, yep, it's significant pay, so.
I get it.
And then this one is Dan Fank, so asking for him to be hired as a part-time correction officer. Downstairs. And his is effective, tomorrow as well.
Pending successful exams.
Yep, actually, we just got those yesterday, so he should be good.
So looking for a motion.
Madam Chair, move to approve the hire of part-time correction officer Daniel Fank, effective August 4th, 2021.
I'll second that, Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Johnson, second by Commissioner Schmidt to hire part-time corrections officer Daniel Bank. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And the last one there is to hire, a part-time jury attendant, Colleen Lair, who used to work for us as a, jailer. Just to be an additional jury attendant for us, and effective tomorrow. She'll be level A11, step 1, which is $15.53 per hour.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the part-time hire of jury attendant Colleen Lair, effective August 4th.
Madam Chair, I'll second that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Schmidt, second by Commissioner Schiefelbein to hire part-time jury attendant Colleen Lair. Step 1, $15.53 per hour, effective August 4th. Any questions or discussion? Just curious when I looked at, how often do they work? Just when we have a jury trial?
Yeah.
Which isn't,
More lately, but it's been a while. So we currently have 2 jury attendants. We're hoping to get 1 or 2 more because the 2 that we have, they're not able to cover all the time. So then we've been using bailiffs in their spot.
do we just have one at a time that works?
No, there's 2.
There is 2 that works during a jury trial. So they get them coffee and get them lunch or whatever and get them seated in it.
Yeah, they take care of the jury, escorting them to wherever they are in the building, guarding them if they're in the jury room. They just take care of all of that.
I was just curious, do we do 2 a month? 2 every, we don't know how many jury trials we do. Do we have an average?
So last month, the jury trial, the defense waived and it went to a court trial. This month, we were scheduled for a 2-week homicide. And we had probably 2 jury trials in the month of May. So 1 to 2 a month.
So
But they're like they're a couple days, and they help transport the jurors from the community room upstairs, because the big problem is having that many people come up and down the stairs when it's COVID.
Sure.
So COVID really made trials seem a lot longer.
I was just curious.
And you furnish them a uniform, because they are in uniform, aren't they?
Yep. Yeah, we take care of all that, so.
Do they have any special training or?
We just give them basic use of force. They're not licensed or anything. We just give them some basic stuff. But we have the armed bailiffs who are generally around the courtrooms as well, so.
Okay.
And the judge does a lot of the communicating on how the process is supposed to happen. So they're deeply involved with working with the court administration and the judges.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
sorry for being late.
Well, go ahead if you had something else you wanted to talk about. We're here.
No,
That was easy, wasn't it?
that was easy.
Yeah.
You do that every time you take care of half of it.
It's gonna depend maybe.
Thank you.
Thanks. Diane Winter, Public Health Director.
Good morning, Diane Meeker from Public Health, and I have one agenda item for your consideration this morning. Historically, all the public health staff have been certified in CPR annually, and Eileen was a certified instructor and held that role for many years. She had planned her retirement ahead, so we were in the process of training someone to replace her. So Eileen officially retired in April. However, the staff person, Angela, cannot complete that last step to be an instructor because of COVID. It has to be an in-person practicum, and they're not offering that right now. So we did a little looking around the community to see who might be able to fulfill that role. There really wasn't, there weren't really any options for us. Eileen is willing to come back on a casual part-time basis just to conduct those classroom instructions and certification. So that would mean 2 4 to 4.5 hour sessions and then some prep time. So at max, maybe 15 hours. And we are tentatively planning to do that in September. And then by this time next year, the staff person that has been trained, with the exception of that last step, should be available to complete that.
Madam Chair, move to approve the hire of casual part-time instructor Eileen Nelson, effective August 15th.
Motion by Commissioner Johnson, do I hear a second?
I'll second that motion.
Second by Commissioner Shifelbein. Discussion? I just have a quick question. So that's just to train your staff.
Great.
Do you ever go out and do trainings?
She has. She has provided training to McLeod and Sibley in the past, and then also to some community groups.
Because I think there's some businesses that maybe could use that service, and I have looked in the past and not been able to, like I've checked with the fire department, and, cause I think a lot of people would like their staff to have, that is a possibility?
With Angela, I mean, I can't speak for Eileen, she's coming back to do this
Right.
on our behalf. We could look at Angela, we'll have to see where we are capacity-wise.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Diane, do you wanna just give us a quick update on the COVID as long as we're a few minutes here?
Sure. So last week, Thursday, CDC posted on their website, county by county, state by state, where the COVID-19 transmission lies, and they had 4 different categories: low, moderate, substantial, and high. And at that time, there were 14 counties that were in the substantial, Meeker being one of them, so we were orange. And what they're looking at is the number of new cases per 100,000 over the last 7 days, and then also the case positivity over the last 7 days, and that put Meeker into that orange or substantial. Sometime over the weekend, I think it was late Friday or early Saturday, I got an email that we were since moved into the high or the red category. I think the biggest concern is that we know that the Delta variant is responsible for a lot of this spread, and MDH and the epidemiologists are saying that that variant is spreading twice as fast as the virus has in the past. And then given that we're only 50% vaccinated rate, that is concern. Anecdotally, when I look at the line list, so that's a number of positives reported to MDH on a daily basis, seeing a lot more households, 2 and 3 people, individuals in the same household positive. I am seeing some more 20 and 30-year-olds, but that not necessarily holds true. If you look though, for those who have been interviewed, a lot more family gatherings, outings, being in places indoors where you suspect you might be at higher risk. I can't say whether or not they're vaccinated, that information's not available.
Is our testing public, I mean, are people calling for tests, or are most of these going through the clinic, or?
Last week, Lori was on the call with the hospital, and they had seen, I don't remember specifically, but had seen a little bit of an increase in calls and testing. We did have a few more calls yesterday about people wondering about vaccinations, so, and that's a sign that if people are kind of on the fence or in the middle, they're maybe reconsidering.
And we're still doing a clinic, I noticed we had a clinic, what, a week or so ago?
Yeah, we're doing standing clinics every other week, walk in, or they can pre-register. We had a request from a community member in Cosmos yesterday wanting to revisit another community clinic in Cosmos because they have some interest there. We will honor those. But right now it's walk-in or registration just on those every other week basis. We are hoping, we keep hearing that Moderna is going to be available. We do have some Moderna available for school, for vaccines for school-age children, but we were hoping that we would have that approval by now, and we still don't have it. So that's, we have those clinics planned, we could roll those out pretty quickly if it got approval.
I was watching the news this morning, and I see that there are some places that are getting pretty aggressive in saying, in order to come to work, and I believe it was St. John's University, you must be vaccinated.
Right.
Also, a healthcare provider in the cities has mandated if you work there, you will be vaccinated. So it's kind of interesting because we've heard about healthcare workers, not wanting the vaccine, the nurses and so forth. So could change the dynamics if now it's required to work.
I
And of
can
course-
guarantee you some of that is gonna end up in some court somewhere appealing when we're forcing vaccinations on people. That's a discussion right now around COVID, but it's been a discussion around vaccinations for a long time, so this is gonna get interesting, I think.
Well, and with that, CDC changed their recommendation for masking. So in these substantial or high-risk counties, they're recommending that individuals, whether vaccinated or not, wear a mask whenever indoors in public spaces. And so, I mean, quite honestly, the mask issue is coming back again, and that's almost as challenging as the vaccination issue, especially now since we've kind of gone away from that and now expecting to consider masking.
I think it's obvious that, you know, if you wanna get rid of the mask, get vaccinated, and now you're vaccinated, and they're saying, no, put your mask back on. I mean, it's difficult
is,
to
yeah.
get people to understand that. Any other questions for Diane?
Diane, what are our numbers in the county? Do you have that?
Oh, I looked at this morning at the total, it seems to me it's right around 2,700 total positives since the beginning. 44 deaths, 100 and,
Oh,
yeah, 34.
I was just wondering, like, recent, is there?
Oh, I can just, yeah, well, so, where are we? We in August now? I think it must have been early to mid-July. We had days where we didn't have any positives, or we would have one or two. You are going to see probably, well, I can't estimate, I'm not always clear how MDH determines when they're posted to the website. So now they're not posting data on Saturday and Sunday, so Fridays are reported on Monday, and then Saturday, Sunday, Mondays are reported on Tuesday. I mean, that is 3 days, but I think there's probably gonna be around a dozen or so. So I would say we're averaging 4 or 5 a day, where we had been 0.
Oh, what are hospitalizations? I don't think are up on our deaths on top of
And we haven't had a death, since July, early July, and then just yesterday, there was one new hospitalization. Hospitalizations have not, for a while, they were every week, now they're probably 1 a week.
That's when I kind of follow it, but like you said, MDH, I think I looked yesterday or the day before, I couldn't get any information.
We didn't have anything yesterday, so our Friday line list showed no new positives. But there were some Saturday, Sunday, and Monday that we'll post today. But the deaths and the hospitalizations are always a delayed report, so sometimes I see them out in the newspaper before I realize that they're on our list.
And the link that you sent me today, the CDC link, showed 22 cases in the county over the past 7 days, which is what pushed us into the high category. So it was like 94.5 per 100,000, and that's the number that they look at.
But during the height of the pandemic, we'd have families of 6 or 8 that had the whole family, so then you'd see the number, you know. So it doesn't really tell you the whole.
Correct.
I'm not minimizing it, I'm just saying that it doesn't give the whole picture.
It's an increase from 0.
That's what it
So I
is.
mean,
Yeah.
it's substantial from a low.
But it's also understandable,
Yeah.
because if one person has it in the family and your family is 6, and you know what I'm saying? You look like you're ready for it to be over, so,
I am.
as we all are, so,
It's not going anywhere fast.
No.
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a good day.
Barry Spreiter, Informational Technology Director.
Good morning. Mary Spreiter.
Hey, you're doing her job now too? I know.
Mary Sprecher, IT Director. I have one item for your consideration this morning, and that is a request to purchase wireless access points, one switch and some patch panels to provide Wi-Fi coverage throughout the courthouse and the Family Services Center. And so working through the project, you can see we need the access points and licensing. Then we need a couple of patch panels and one switch, and then there'd be cabling on top of that. So it totals to be about $40,000, $40,329. And there are some dollars in the budget, 2021 budget in capital projects, but in discussions with the county administrator, it was determined that this project would qualify for ARP funding as well.
So, on the license, or do you want a motion on the floor before we discuss, or what do you want?
Whatever you wanna do is fine.
How many reoccurring licenses are we gonna be paying with this?
Each one of the access points gets a separate license.
Okay, and then I see it's a 3-year term?
Yep.
So then in 3 years, we pay for the licensing again.
Okay. Looking for a motion to approve the request for Wi-Fi, the Wi-Fi project.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of access points, licensing, switch and patch panels.
Motion by Commissioner Schmidt, is anyone second?
Madam Chair, I will second that motion.
Second by Commissioner Johnson, discussion?
13 access points and all 13 of them will need a license.
Each one needs a license. 13 total. There's 21 for the Family Services Center and 13 at the courthouse. That's what it was.
They're gonna be better coverage of the family services building.
This will be
You have a
both
meeting
buildings.
over there.
Yeah, for the meeting rooms as well.
Yeah, there will actually be covered.
It's pretty ugly over there when you try to get online.
There isn't any coverage in that building at all, so this will be throughout all of the county offices. There will not be coverage, we won't be providing coverage in the rental areas. Most of them have their own already.
And we see an older building, the cost of running cabling in there is significant to,
Sure, and there's more solid walls in that building as well. The courthouse has a little bit more open access, open ceilings, so
what is the time frame to complete this?
I would say within 60 days of approval, we could get this
So
done.
DNF can do their portion right away?
They did indicate that they would have availability fairly quickly.
That's kinda good nowadays. While you're waiting. Any other discussion?
So it ended up costing 19,000 more than what was budgeted then? Is that what the,
Yeah, so in the budget, we only had, one of the buildings.
Oh.
I thought was with the ARP, we could capture both buildings at the same time. and-
gotcha, that's why it was 21?
Yeah.
You're planning on just doing one,
Correct.
gotcha. I'm tempted to vote no, just to see Andrew's face.
Are you gonna do it? Are you gonna do it?
I don't know. I just-
Well, let's all have a vote and see. All in favor? All in favor? Yeah.
Aye.
Opposed? Coward. Good to-
There'll be other times, I'm sure.
Mary? Mary,
Mary?
one last question. The outlook, I couldn't quite hear you when I asked you before, where are we at with that project and how soon are we gonna be ready to cut over?
We are going to kick off that project in about a week. We're gonna be starting that work and we are going to plan to finish completely within 90 days.
Okay.
So probably a cut over, I would say within 6 weeks or so.
Thank you.
Alright, Paul Bukovich, Social Service Director.
Good morning, Paul Bukovich, Social Services. It's Fair Week, yay!
Yay.
Alright.
Any drive-in stories, no rendering trucks today?
Yeah, no rendering.
Yeah.
No.
You might as well go on home then. I don't-
Yeah.
The only order of business I have before you today is to approve our social services accounts payables.
And I've got a question, but not on your account, so,
Okay.
not for you. Barb is up there, but-
Looking for a motion.
I do have a question, but go ahead and put it out there first.
Can I get a motion to approve the social service accounts payable?
Yes.
Motion by Commissioner Johnson.
Yes. No, I'm just seconding his motion, yeah.
People dying. Alright, discussion, Paul.
And this is only an odd one I found here. Crow's Nest. Crow's Nest, semi-independent living service. That's an interesting name.
Yes.
Crow's Nest.
Yes, it's a local area, vendor that's been with us for quite some time.
Okay.
And what they do is they provide semi-independent living services, and what that is actually we purchase that, and they go into the home and help that individual either overcome barriers to independent living or help them support them with independent living.
My reference was, looking at that name, if I was looking for that, semi-independent living, I would never think of looking at Crow's Nest as a name of one of them.
No, but if you were searching for that service, you would say semi-independent living services, Meeker County, Minnesota.
And it would-
And a whole list of those vendors would show up.
I wonder how they got the name. I've often wondered that too. Crow's Nest. It's kind of.
That I don't know. I don't know if they originally started because of the Crow River.
That's what I wondered also.
Is my assumption. And this is a unique budget item for us. We receive a grant per se from the Department of Human Services, and there's a county match to this. So this is not all county funds, but it's one of those interesting formulas where if you use it, it grows. And so the more utilization, the more money we draw down from DHS to bring back into our community. Yes, exactly.
there's
I
a-
caught your
There's
question.
been a lot of things, but I'm not going to. Right, Commissioner Shebel?
Yeah, exactly.
Any more discussion or questions on the accounts payable? All in favor of approving?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Paul.
If I may just give you just a little heads up, we're starting to see more of our employees come back into the office. We haven't fully determined who is going to be on a telework policy. But we have COVID knocking at our doors, and as you had heard, Diane, and some of the concerns that you've also seen in the news, I guess I'd like to say that we would be open to having a mask requirement for our employees in our building just to ensure their safety as we go forward. So if that comes up in discussion, it is a concern for us. We're starting to see a lot more walk-in customers as well, so.
And your staff is suggesting that also, that they would like to go to that?
We haven't had any formal conversations about this. At this point, we're going to follow the county, obviously.
I think it's nice that they can have some decision making on their own. It's just my.
Yep.
I think it's gonna be a tough haul trying to get people to put masks on.
I agree.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Barb Lot, County Auditor.
No, you are ahead of schedule.
5 minutes. Mess me up when you ask that question.
You're right on target. Okay, good morning, Barb Law, County Auditor. The first thing we have is another event that is going to take place for a 3-2 request, and that is the Watkins Sportsman's Club for their event on September 5th. If I could ask for approval of that.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve a 3-2 liquor license, or 3-2 license for Watkins Sportsman's Club on September 5th.
Motion by Commissioner Schmidt, looking for a second.
I'll second that motion.
Second by Commissioner Schiefelbein, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Interesting point with the 3-2 is our region is meeting in October, and there is a lot of concern among my constituents on how to help people with the 3-2 in the unavailability of those products and moving them to strong beer and wine, and then there's other ramifications. So we may, as a group, be looking at some way to lobby for assistance on that, and I think that you can speak to that as well.
Well, I mean, it's a tough, I do
a tough call.
for the state, but 3-2 is getting more and more difficult to get. And my beer guys have told me it's just a difference of a cover on a keg. Now, I have customers and they'll tell you they can taste it. I don't know, I'm not a drinker, but, so, I don't know, but it's a struggle.
Right.
And it's gonna continue to be a struggle with everybody. I've had the same discussions with the city.
Sure.
So what idea, do they have some ideas?
We have the Department of Public Safety and the Alcohol Division meeting with us in October, being the 4 regions on the south, so Meeker is about the north, and we can go east and west and draw a line south. And I think we'll be addressing some of those, because those were issues they asked for in topics, to look at how we can help these small establishments, because if they do have to go to strong beer and wine, there's a large food requirement and other safety items, and it pretty much takes care of some of our very small places that 3-2 is there.
Well, and if
their
they
deal.
just have one event a year or 2 events, it's really, they might have to go to get an outside caterer to do it for them.
Correct, and that was one of the suggestions that I gave the last person that asked me, and we're a little disappointed. So maybe there's something that can come out of that meeting, or at least making awareness to it. And I just want you to be aware when I bring these, that these are a struggle.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, and Valley Days, I know, I bet 5 years ago we went away from 3-2 license just because it was, the vendors are having a hard time getting product.
And I
I'm
think,
really having a hard time now. You don't
Yeah.
know from week to week what you're getting, so.
So it's unfortunate, and I hope these, events don't get curtailed because of that. There's a lot of them, and you've seen me come quite often just for our little local area here in Meeker.
Okay.
The next item I have is the county payables and the hospital.
For a motion to approve.
Move to approve the county and hospital accounts payable.
Motion by Commissioner Johnson. Anybody second?
I'll second that motion.
Second by Commissioner Schiefelbein. Questions?
I just had one on the AIS stewardship, that $4,000 for
Correct.
herbicide stewardship.
Paul had that same question yesterday, so I looked at the claim form, and I think we need to instruct some people that there's only 18 characters of what you can see. And so that's more difficult in the selection that they put on there. One was for Minnabell and the other one was Long Lake, I believe. Is that what I emailed you?
You only referenced Long Lake.
Okay, the other one was Minnabell. So I think we should reach out to Ariana to put data there that will be more helpful on the claim form so that you can track it if you wanna track it by lakes, rather than just by the title of what she's doing.
I was just stewardship, I mean,
Right.
because I under.
So it has to do with
herbicide
Minnabell.
stewardship is the only, I mean, I hope that ain't stewardship is what I'm getting at.
Well, I said the same thing, but there was a whole lingo of words and I wasn't authority enough to determine
Yeah,
what was
well,
the word they should use. And so I think what we should do is from the committee standpoint, identify what's most important, cause keep in mind, we have 19 characters of space in the description, and then you have the invoice, so an invoice could be the name of the lake or a number. And that's what you see on those reports, and that's what you see on the activity reports. So it's important that we probably instruct people to put the most pertinent information for the history.
Seeing AIS treatment for Long Lake and Minnabell would have satisfied me
Sure.
in that
Treatment
particular description.
Makes sense, but stewardship,
It's a different,
I mean, that's the licensing, but that's like $50.
But I think it should come from your
So I
committee.
mean,
yeah, and I can,
stewardship would be.
we meet next Monday, so I can forward with
Because
Ariana.
when we do claim forms as department heads, we put on likely what's most important. And then when they're keying it in, they have 19 characters to take from that. And it depends upon who's doing it, is what we know is most important to our committee or to our department.
Any other questions?
That's all I had.
Anybody? All in favor?
Alright,
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. What do you wanna do now?
We can do the 18, County 18, but we need to connect with Kale.
Alright, give me just.
We'll have to wait till
Before we get
9:30
Kale.
for the public.
9:30 for
It's
the
gonna
public,
be-
because
it's
I
gonna
don't
be-
know if we'll have attendance, but we
Oh, I-
have to. And but Kale will be able to fill the time on 18, there's some discussion there. Rather than have Kale drive down, I asked that we use the technology for it.
Are they at St. Cloud?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kind of downtown,
That saves us a significant amount of money.
yes it does, as you saw in the payables.
Because you know how attorneys are there. Oh, I'm sorry, Brandy.
Unless, of course, they work for the county.
Did you apologize for
work right
attorneys?
now,
Holy crap, on record? Oh, my. That might be lack of reelection right there. This is Meeker County, you remember, Paul?
I'm glad I don't sit in your Thanksgiving dinner.
Glad you're meeting.
Yeah. We got the biggest commissioner to get in between us.
It's the size of the fight and the dog,
Yeah.
not the size of
That's
the
what
dog and
makes
the
me
fight.
Alright, it's moving slow here.
I have one here. Sorry.
Alright, so we've got,
Are you guys getting a lot of rain, Phil?
So, we got 1.3. Steve, you're not gonna be at the JD 52 hearing?
if I can help it.
I looked that stuff over, there's just,
Did you
Andrew,
see
do
the
you want me to,
the last half hour?
no, I see it, I haven't opened it yet.
Okay.
Should I?
Okay, are we ready?
it looks like,
You wanna turn off that camera? So we're not just looking at your house.
oh, sorry, yes, I shall.
Unless you wanna do the camera on. What you want us to look at?
Stop my video.
What you want us to look at?
This one?
But I think
Boy, that's a series of bad luck, isn't it?
Isn't it though?
2 funerals and 1 was in a hospice?
I know. I saw that this morning and I'm going, Lauren, you got this. You know, I mean, how are you gonna back up that?
Did you see it, Steve?
Yeah, I'm reading it right now, I was like,
And the individual is Dwayne, that's the one that they're not listing as Dwayne.
first viewer,
okay, but then Kale can't say more.
third viewer, hospital.
So Beth, when we get Gail, on here live, I
I
don't
think
think
can't do it.
indicates that he's hearing us
That's
yet,
third viewer.
but you're gonna recess the board and then convene the city.
So I can,
Perfect.
I'm gonna turn it.
How big would the avenue?
That's what it says here.
That's the one that needs to be on.
I can handle that.
Yeah,
I wonder if you can.
well, but
He's not waving, so
He's not waving, but he's got his eyes moving.
it's not looking like he's hearing us.
No, yeah, we're working through.
We're
the
working on it.
technical piece right now.
Barb, we don't need to be at that meeting on Thursday,
so that's the one.
because I have a conflict. That's-
No, that's an information meeting with the landowners so that they
You're on
can
the
get
tax
any of
committee?
their concerns likely taken care of. That's
Aggregate
So I'm
tax.
sure
Yeah.
Lauren will do a really
Yeah.
good job.
Yeah. That's the reason.
Oh, yeah, you and Julie.
Talk will do that.
Oh, it was,
So I guess I had it on my phone. Sure.
special board.
That's fine. Do you have a couple of pictures?
That's my password.
Technology is wonderful when it works. Right?
That's right.
Luckily, it don't get paid by the hour.
I'm gonna be on there twice, but I should be able to.
Oh,
shut that other one down.
Be an interest, it'll be I bet you,
Yeah.
Including our IT staff, you gotta include them, because that's,
and I bet you it's,
we pay a lot of money. That's why I keep choking on these licenses.
I'm gonna go in and
Oh, I know. Every,
get out of
Oh,
here.
everywhere.
Those IT
Very soft.
people, it's the right career to be in.
bad attorney.
You're right.
Can you imagine being an attorney married to an IT person?
Yeah,
Oh, my
I don't think you're gonna get
Can I
one
just
up
shut
on
this
it.
down?
Just sit quietly.
God.
Conversations are boring.
They don't talk, they just text each other.
Yeah, exactly.
They're sitting at the table, what are we having for supper?
Yeah.
Through an email.
Dinner ready? No.
It's proof that we,
Alright, I think we're getting there,
First,
guys.
you gotta decide if it's dinner or supper.
supper, we're not classy.
Okay, and he,
Where was
can
that
you hear
one?
us?
Oh, no, it's,
Yes?
You can hear us now?
Okay, perfect.
Okay, good. So at this time, we're gonna recess the county board and convene as a county ditch authority. First, order of business on the agenda will be, the ranking attorney conflict waiver, Barb?
So we need to address the Rankin Glen conflict, which potentially is on County Ditch 18. We do have Kale here to speak toward it, but commissioners, both Matt and Darcy have submitted a petition on County Ditch 18. Brandy, Andrew, and I have worked through the situation and met with Kale so that we could understand better. how to handle this, being this was another one that I was bringing to you. This is an isolated situation in our findings. In addressing this conflict of interest, we're suggesting that it is waivable for the ditch authority to have Kale represent us, and the Johnsons have also acknowledged and signed this waiver. In that consultation, I would like for you to approve the proposed waiver and authorize Beth to sign that. Kale, did you want to add any item to that?
No, the reasoning is explained in the letter. If the board has questions, I can answer those. This is the second time this has come up in Meeker County in the last couple of years since I started working with you. By contrast, I've been working with Renville County, your neighbor, since 2012, and this hasn't come up over there once. So I think this is just an issue where I don't expect to see this a lot, but now it's come up twice. The matters are unrelated, and so the conflict is waivable, but the ethics rules governing attorneys require us to disclose that to you. So if you have questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Otherwise, until the board signs the conflict waiver, I'm barred from representing the county. Johnson's have signed it, but it requires both parties to waive conflict.
Any questions or looking for a motion?
I would just, county attorney, or you concur with everything that's presented?
Yes, I don't think that this would be a situation where we would not sign the waiver. I think this is appropriate. We vetted it. Kale and his office, Rinky Noonan, obviously they represent a lot of clients. They are held by the same standards as every other attorney. And I don't think they'd have the reputation they have if they weren't going to be honest with us regarding whether or not the conflict was so much that it would interfere with their ability to represent us. So at this point, based upon the information that we gathered in our meeting and with the phone call, I think it would be appropriate for the county to sign the waiver.
Kale did indicate that the issues were totally separate.
And I would agree.
Yeah.
And what is nice is that we also have a waiver from the other party already, saying they would agree with it too.
Okay,
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the conflict waiver as proposed by Rinky Noonan to represent the Drainage Authority on petition by Matthew and Darcy Johnson for use of drainage system as an outlet.
okay, motion by Commissioner Schmidt, do I hear a second?
I'll second that motion.
Second by Commissioner Schiefelbein, any more discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have the County Ditch 18 petition for authority to use as an outlet.
Yes, so before you is Matt and Darcy Johnson have submitted a petition for authority to use County Ditch 18 as an outlet for a private drainage system installed to benefit their 74 acres in the east half of the southwest quarter of section 27. A public hearing will be needed to determine whether the system has the capacity for this outlet request. If it is determined that the system has the capacity for the outlet, then a fee will be determined and benefits for future repairs will also be set. An appointment of an engineer and or a viewer may be necessary to access the properties described and make a recommendation. And at this point, I'm gonna ask Kale to weigh in and give you some of the options that we have today on this particular situation.
Okay, thank you, Barb.
Thanks, Barb. The petition is filed under 103E.401, and that says that once the petition is filed, the auditor shall bring it to you to set a hearing date. And at the hearing, the drainage authority is to consider capacity of the outlet drainage system. Unlike some other petitions, you're not required to appoint an independent engineer to look at that, although you can. So the board has a couple options. I think you can appoint your own engineer and use drainage system costs to pay for a engineer for the system. And that's to protect the capacity of all the other benefited owners, to make sure that if this system is used as an outlet for these new lands, that no one else's drainage benefit who's already paying into the system would be impacted by that. So that's one option. The other option is similar to the hearing we have coming up after this agenda item, we could send a letter to Johnson's saying the statute requires you to demonstrate that there's adequate capacity. We're planning on hosting the hearing on this date and would appreciate having received some objective evidence from you about capacity by this date, so the board has that prior to the hearing. And to make it known that this is an evidentiary hearing, there needs to be some evidence about capacity presented at the hearing for the board to act on it. Other drainage authorities where the properties are relatively well known by the board and there's no known issues of capacity, go forward sometimes without any engineer participating in the proceeding at all. So if the board is familiar with the property, familiar with the system, that's an acceptable path forward too. But the only option we don't have is that we just have to set a hearing date, and hearing is noticed by mail and by publication. So that hearing date needs to be at least 3 weeks out, because published notice is once per week for 3 weeks.
So, what are the board's wishes?
I'll make one comment. I know in the past, before I started working here, there was a petition for an outlet on the same ditch, and there were a couple landowners claiming that it has the capacity of it to, for the additional outlet into it. I would not be surprised at the public hearing if these couple landowners would voice their opinion. So having, whether we appointed an engineer or if the landowner appointed someone or had determined that, I think would be a good idea. So I think there will be some feedback at the public hearing.
Cale indicated that this would be an evidentiary hearing, correct? So we have to have evidence of capacity, either furnished by us or by landowner, correct?
Correct.
Does that evidence, does that fall on the landowner? I mean, since they're petitioning to add tile, I feel it would be on the landowner's benefit and behalf that they provide that evidence that there is capacity.
Commissioner Schmidt, the burden in the statute would be on the landowner if there's just no evidence in the record and the board dismissed for no evidence. That would be because the landowner didn't bring any. It's their burden to prove capacity.
So really, our motion here today is basically procedural, just to get, they petitioned, they've asked for an outlet, and we're just granting them the public hearing, and they need to provide the evidence.
Correct, a motion is needed to set the hearing date. That needs to be at least 3 weeks out. And then some guidance from the board on whether you'd like staff to hire an engineer at system cost to protect the system, or to send a letter to the petitioners informing them that it's their burden to show capacity and requesting they file that evidence in advance.
I would make a motion to grant the public hearing. Barb, do you have a date?
I'm thinking the first Tuesday in October,
So that is,
October 5, I believe.
Yes, that's the 5th.
So I'll make a motion to set the public hearing for October 5th. And with the petitioner providing the engineer, however you worded that, Cale, they have to provide the evidence, so they need to hire the engineer, or we recommend they hire an engineer. Is that the way you want it worded?
Would it be recommended or would it be required? Because we want factual evidence, correct, Gil?
My suggestion would be we set it up the same way we did for the hearing coming up after this on the removal, that we notify them of the hearing date, request that they file evidence, a week in advance, but notify them that if we don't have any evidence about capacity, then because it's an evidentiary hearing, the petition may be dismissed based on.
So we do not tell them how to get that evidence, that's up to them, correct?
But it has to be satisfactory to us when it's presented.
Correct.
At the hearing, correct?
So Commissioner Schmidt, do you have a motion?
Yeah.
Well, we've got the public hearing set for October 5th. That's
I need time.
9:30. I mean, we're gonna do it as part of a board meeting, I take it. 9:30?
9:30 works if.
October 5th, 9:30, public hearing on County Ditch 18 as an outlet with the petitioner providing the evidence of capacity.
Have a motion? Set the public hearing with the petitioner providing evidence of capacity on October 5th at 9:30. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that motion.
Second by Commissioner Schiefelbein. Any more discussion? Take the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay. Want us to wait till 9:30?
Probably just announce that we're going to do that now.
Pardon? Just ready?
Just minutes before 9:30? Okay, super. I'll get on the agenda.
Okay.
I thought I had one up here. Let's just.
I'd like to welcome everyone who's come this morning. The purpose of our meeting is to receive comments and testimony from all parties interested in the petition of Bert Herzog and Sharon Pinker to remove benefit property from the County Ditch 35 drainage system. The order of business for today for this hearing will be as follows. First, Mr. Van Bruggen, the Drainage Authority's attorney, will explain the process which has brought us to this public hearing and the purpose of this hearing. Following Mr. Bruggen, the Drainage Authority's County Auditor, Barb Locke, will review the notice requirements. Following Mrs. Locke, the petitioners will be presented an opportunity to present their request. Finally, we would like to hear the public's comments on the petition. Today's proceedings are being conducted under Minnesota Statute Section 103E.805. That statute directs us to consider to grant the petition if number one, waters from the petitioner's property have been diverted from the drainage system, or the property cannot significantly or regularly use the drainage system. Number two, the property is not benefited by the drainage system, and number three, removing the property from the drainage system will not prejudice the property owners and property remaining in the system. If you would like to make a comment when the public comment period is open, please come up to the podium when I recognize you. Please state your name and address for the record. If you have a specific question concerning the petition, we may ask our legal counsel or staff to respond. If you have anything in writing you wish to submit, you can provide it to me during the public comments. Would any of the board members wish to offer any further remarks before we proceed? If not, we turn to Kale, right, for discussion of the process and the purpose. Mr. Van Bruggen.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Board. As was identified, we are operating today under statutes 103E.805. The petition is asking to remove certain property from the benefits list of this ditch system, meaning that if the petition were to be granted, these acres would no longer be assessed their pro rata share for inspection, maintenance, and operation of the drainage system. As was stated, the drainage code says that you can only approve a petition like this if all three of the following things are present. Evidence that water from the petitioner's property has been diverted from the drainage system, or that the property cannot significantly or regularly use the drainage system. Number two, that the property is not benefited by the drainage system. And number three, that removing the property from the drainage system will not prejudice the property owners that remain in the system. We did send a letter to the petitioners on June 7th. That was received, it was sent certified, it was received a few days after it was sent, where we outlined for the petitioners those three requirements and reminded them that this is an evidentiary hearing today and that there would need to be evidence in the record in order to support a petition like this. In that letter, we suggested to the petitioners that some viewers, being led by Ron Rehnquist, are specially trained in identifying benefits and provided contact information and said, although it's not required you use these folks, it's one idea of someone you could hire to help you provide some objective evidence for the hearing today. And then we asked that any evidence be provided by Friday, July 9th. We did not receive any evidence by that date, but petitioners, if they're present today, will have an opportunity to submit evidence about those three items. So with that, Madam Chair, if there's any questions from the board about procedure leading up to today or the law, I can answer that now. Otherwise, we can move on to Barb for a submission of the notice requirements.
Questions, anyone? Barb?
We posted this notice on July 13th, mailed it to all the affected landowners on County Ditch 35 and also to the petitioner. We do have it on our public Meeker County website as well, meeting the requirements.
Any questions for Barb, anyone? Board members? Okay. With that, we are ready to hear from members of the public who wish to comment. To accommodate each person in the room who may wish to provide public comments, each person may be limited to one opportunity to provide comments. Again, please state your name and address and identify your property as you begin your comments. So, raise your hand, I will take comments. Sir?
My name is Kurt Anderson. I'm a landowner in sections 6 and 9 of Darwin Township. Ditch 35 runs through the center of my property, and I do have some comments on the matter here.
Go ahead.
Well, it appears the letter we received, it didn't accompany any documentation as to prove evidence that the water from the subject property does not enter ditch 35. I think the burden of proof should be placed upon the petitioners to provide evidence that excess rainfall that falls on their property does not end up in ditch 35. And I think there's only one way you can do that, and that would be with a detailed elevation site survey map of the property, adjacent land south of that property, approximately half a mile, adjacent land to the west to the center of ditch 35, and adjacent land to the north a half a mile. And then if that proves that the elevation at the ditch is actually higher than the elevation of the petitioner's property, then that clearly would state that they do not benefit and that their property should be removed. But until we have that information, we can't render an opinion on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to go next?
I did print up a handful of maps with elevations on them. So if anyone wants those.
Wants to
I'm
speak?
Deb Gabrielson,
Okay.
and
What information do you
State your name and your property.
Deb Gabrielson, and I'm just to the west of this parcel that you're talking about. And I'm asking that you vote not to remove this from ditch 35. My late husband farmed this for 45+ years, and there are waterways, no tiles in this land. There are only waterways that go from the road through my land to the ditch. And I know they do work. I worked the land, I farmed with my husband, drove tractor. There's also a piece to the south, I believe owned by Sparbo's, that goes through underneath the field road and hooks into the parcel and does go down another waterway to the county ditch. So my question would be to you is, if you vote to remove it, how are you gonna stop the water coming through these waterways so that they don't benefit from it? Thank you.
Thank you. Who else would like to speak? Mr. Herzog.
I won't need to, thank you. First of all, I'm
I'm sorry, for the recording.
We're taping.
No, it's for the recording.
I'm a landowner. Bert Herzog is my name, and I'm also representing Sharon Pindry. And we are the landowners, and we've owned the land for 20-some odd years. And it's true what Debbie just said. Her husband has been running the land before he passed away. And he's been passed away a couple of years now. And I've been paying on this ditch cleanup since we owned it for the last 20 years. And her husband has been on that land. Deb has been on that land. And Richard has told me many times that that ditch does not benefit, or our land does not benefit from that ditch. I should make it clear that that ditch does not run through this property. This ditch is probably a quarter mile away or more. This ditch in question does not run through this property. This property is some 54 acres, and it's not close enough to the ditch to benefit from the ditch. There's not been any tile put in that property since I own it, and any tile lands that would have been put in before has not have enough decline to use the ditch. The only way that ditch would the only way that property would benefit from that ditch is if we put a lift station there and pump it up so it could drain over to the ditch. It's, right now, there's 18 acres of it put in the Conservation Reserve Program. That property is gonna soak up the water, and it's as low as the ditch, or maybe even lower than the ditch. There's potholes out there. This is not rocket science, people. We can drive out there, and we can drive through the property. To this day, it's dry enough, and we can see it with our own eyes. We don't need to get lawyers and fight each other on this. And we can do it if that's what we wanna do. But I don't wanna do that. This is not rocket science. We can walk out there, and we can walk the property. I'll walk with you, and we can see where the water goes. This is not that difficult, people. I understand Debbie, and she just said how her husband has been out there, Debbie's been out there, they have land next to it. But they don't have this land because they're worried it might, affect their land or something. It's not. This land is 54 acres, and it's not high enough to get any drainage benefit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? Anyone? Sir?
My name's David Schreiber, and I'm under the understanding that's part of the watershed out there. That's what I'm understanding. It's been that way for many, many years.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Anybody? Is there anyone else who would care to speak, or written materials that you'd like to present at this time? Being no, do any of the board members have any questions? What's that? If there being no further testimony from the public. I hereby close the public comment portion of the hearing.
Thanks, John.
Kale, I'll turn over to you for discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks.
Now is the time for the board to deliberate based on the testimony it heard. Again, this being an evidentiary hearing, the board needs to decide based on evidence whether the waters from the petitioner's property have been diverted from County Ditch 35 or that the property cannot significantly or regularly use County Ditch 35. Whether the property is not benefited by the drainage system and whether removing the property would not prejudice other property owners. That's what the statute requires. I think that it might be helpful for the board to look at the elevations on the maps that John just provided. Ultimately, what the board should decide in its deliberations is whether it wants to direct staff to do any further investigation. But based on the comments that were received, I don't think we're quite ripe yet for the board to adopt findings in an order. But ultimately, if the board is ready to make a decision today based on that standard, you could approve a motion to approve the petition, approve a motion to deny the petition, approve a motion to continue the hearing to investigate further. And then whether you approve or deny this petition, I think that we should continue the hearing to perhaps maybe that same October 5th date to allow your staff time to prepare draft findings and responses to the comments for the board to consider. So your staff is going to be looking for some direction as to whether you're approving or denying the petition if that's the route that you go. Are there questions for me about evidence or the standard from the board?
Anyone have questions?
Not pertaining to those comments, no, that I have some.
Okay. So if there's nothing else for the legal counsel, we'll take comments about the testimony presented and the three findings required to be made that we have to make before we act on them. We usually have, I'll let you speak, Mr. Herzog. It's supposed to be one time. Go ahead.
Excuse me, being the landowner, I wonder if I could just comment one more time. I didn't address these three issues here underneath the grant petition, and I think I should address them. Number one, the property cannot significantly or regularly use the drainage system. That's clear. Because of the height of the land and the height of the ditch. That's clear. The property is not benefited from the drainage system, well, that's being said. And by removing this property from the drainage system, it does not make the property worth any more or less, value-wise. The only way, and I need to reiterate, the only way I can use this ditch is if I put in a lift station where I lift the water up to get some drainage, and I'm not gonna do that, I don't see that happening. So I just thought I should address these three issues, these three statements on there more directly. We're not gonna benefit by taking it off the drain. I'm not draining any water to the ditch, as simple as that. It doesn't get there. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, board, wanna discuss, have a discussion here?
I've got a couple things, one of my questions, Kale, or maybe John, you can help me with this. The property has original benefit of $8,127 dollars, and it's 3.76% of the entire system. Do we know what the annual cost to this parcel is? Do we have?
Each time we would spend money on that particular system, any cleaning.
Be
That
3.76.
percentage, correct, and so at this point,
So that really,
it's
the
the
eight,
accumulation, it's hard to determine.
So what is the eight?
The dollars is just to determine that as a percentage to everyone else. So you've got your dollars of benefit that makes you such a percentage of the entire system.
Okay.
So that's why that amount is on.
Okay, that's the question.
So it's the way the viewers view the property way back on the redetermination, whether it was an ABC quality property and then that percentage.
Okay, and then my other comment would be on, to Mr. Herzog here. This property, this 54 acres, and I don't know how much 54 acres holds on inch of rain per gallon. I don't know what that equates to in gallons. But the only reason we're having this hearing here is because of County Ditch 35. If it wasn't a county ditch, then you'd be having this conversation with a watershed district. Cause everybody, I have a house in town, and my house in town, I pay for stormwater sewer. And whether I like it or not, my water runs off my yard and goes into it somewhere. So if you get an inch of rain, 2 inches of rain on 54 acres, that water's going somewhere. And by these elevations, you've got 1126, 1124, and you've got 1120. So you've got fall on your property. Not a lot. I understand that. I'm in agriculture. I get that. But you do have, your water does leave your property at some point. And that does affect your neighbors, and it does affect a drainage system at some point. And we all have to pay into those systems, whether we live in town, whether you live in the country. I mean, all our water goes somewhere. That's all I got.
Anybody else?
I think that kind of sums it up, what Commissioner Schmidt said. I mean, to be honest, I feel like the burden of proof has to come from you in more detail than rather than just words. There has to be someone qualified in terms of this that would say, yes, Mr. Herzog, your property is not benefited by ditch 35, or it's not fair to the other property owners that do have a benefit from ditch 35. I think that's the only way we can go in terms of this, is that you would have to show proof from some sort of authority that would say your property does not benefit from 35. That's my 2 cents.
I would agree with that. I don't think we've seen that today, for sure. So, do you have questions, Paul?
I agree with Danny. The burden of proof was here and I don't think it's been met.
So, based on that, we have to have a motion today to approve or deny, correct? Or,
Madam Chairwoman,
go ahead.
this is Caleb Embergen. Based on the comments, I'd just like to phrase the recommendation for the motion.
Okay.
I did prepare some draft findings to dismiss the petition since we hadn't received any evidence yet. But I do think that in those findings, there should be a response to the comments made before they get adopted. So if it is okay with staff as to date and time, I'd recommend a motion to deny the petition based on lack of evidence, direct staff to prepare draft findings in response to those comments, and continue the hearing to the board's October 5th, 9:30 a.m. meeting or thereafter as the agenda allows, to allow staff time to prepare a response to the comments.
So,
Can't repeat that.
we're asking for a motion to deny, and with, help me out here, Bart, instructing staff
The draft findings.
draft findings to be heard on October 5th. So, that's the motion we're looking for, I think, if we're all in agreement.
Madam Chair, I'll move that motion.
Do you wanna repeat it, Mr.
No.
Jones? Okay. Can I get a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Johnson, second by Commissioner Schmidt. Any further discussion from the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. So now we will, close the public hearing and reconvene as our county board. adjourn the county ditch authority and reconvene as a public board. Thank you for coming, everyone. I was trying to get a little levity in the room.
It did
I
seem
thought we
to.
needed it. Danny, I was
I,
shitting on you.
I know, I just didn't know where to go, to be honest. Like, going, this might not be the time for that.
Okay, so moving on, Andrew Letson, county administrator.
Kale just left, okay. I just wanna make sure you have anything to say. Okay, here.
Yeah.
I wasn't going there.
No, just like going, let him, otherwise,
The only item I have for my report today is that, we'll see you at the fair this weekend.
no.
That's it?
That's it?
Fun in the beer garden?
Yes.
Okay, and speaking, while we have you, I do not think that you should be a judge in the cookie contest if your daughter wants to bake cookies, so we'll find something.
Conflict of interest.
You have addressed
It's
it.
been addressed.
I really felt bad when I saw
We
it.
don't need to
No.
get Kale on this one,
No,
do
we
we?
don't have to do it.
I had strong-armed my wife the night before into baking cookies, and then I found out the next morning I was gonna be a judge, and I told her, you can't win, and she was disappointed with that.
Just a quick question. We had instructed you to look into architects.
Yes.
Are we anywhere with that, or?
Yes, we are in the process of getting responses right now, and let me find out what the due date on that is. It's in the next week or two.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Board of Commissioners, I have one thing too, I had a meeting in the old library at the social service building, what number is that, Corey?
200?
200?
The ceiling is coming down,
Okay, we'll talk with Joel.
have you seen it?
Um,
It's been that way a while.
okay, okay.
That's a beautiful room, we need to address.
Yeah,
getting
we'll
it
talk with
fixed.
Joel.
Thank you. Okay, Board of Commissioners, committee update, Commissioner Schmidt, do you wanna go first?
I suppose. Didn't have July was actually the quietest month I had in a while. We did have a couple meetings, the county, me and Danny and Andrew with, basically, and Lisa from EDA, with the city of Litchfield on some tax abatement discussion between the city and David Tisk and a 60-unit apartment complex out on County Road, just off County Road 34 on the east side of town. We had that meeting, we had two meetings on that, on Friday and Tuesday. There's continued discussion on that. I believe we have another meeting coming up the 23rd. So there's some ongoing things to work on there. Grove City Care, had that meeting on 26th, Monday night. Things are going well there. They're beginning to open up more and more, and probably we'll start to tighten things up a little bit, the way
Yeah.
it sounds too. But I think the elderly community is very happy to be gathering again, just socializing. You know, so they've had like 60 people turn out from around the area for their friendship group, or whatever, I believe is what they call it, on Tuesday afternoons, or Thursday afternoons at 2 o'clock once a month. Just brings people from around the community and the members of the care, Grove City Care residents out just to get together and gather a little bit. And other than that, I had Emergency Services Board last week, and for anybody who likes acronyms, actually on the Emergency Services Board dashboard, there is a complete glossary of all the acronyms that go with Emergency Services Board. So we are looking at trying to consolidate some of the meetings. There's been discussion with the sheriff and some of the sheriffs from the west central part of the state, just that there's too many meetings that overlap, too many small committees within Emergency Services Board, trying to get some of them consolidated so there's less meetings and less redundancy, so
That would be a good
basic.
idea in a lot of boards, I think.
That one is,
Yeah, I
there's a
think
lot
so.
to that. There's 18 counties in that region, so that brings you all the way out to the border, Traverse County and stuff, so there's a lot of moving pieces to that Central Minnesota Emergency Services. That's about all I had. Oh, and then we're working on budget, we started yesterday, so this is marathon budget week.
Danny?
Yep. Yeah, I didn't really have any committees, but, like Steve said, Andrew, Steve and I were met with Litchfield City about the David Tisk thing. Just a kind of ongoing thing about tax abatement in terms of anything.
I'm just curious, is the city willing to contribute a little something, or where are they at?
That's a good question.
Kind of a $100,000 question, isn't it?
It's a little more than that, but I think it's about a $500,000 question, but we're not getting
Kidding,
specific
city,
yet.
watch
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
So
But,
you're gonna have future meetings?
yeah, because there is kind of David Tisk has sort of a deadline in terms of getting state money. And that's why we're kind of pushed for a little more time. And I think the EDA part is meeting the 23rd. We're not meeting with Litchfield yet, right?
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
We're gonna do EDA first and then we'll go back to Litchfield
Yeah,
or something.
We're gonna be getting a specific request from David Tisk for the county's contribution, and the EDA is gonna review that and then make a recommendation to the county board.
Good.
So that's the process.
Then, go ahead.
And I'm sorry, I guess in what I witnessed or whatever in a couple of meetings, it's really up to the city to kind of give us direction what they want to do, and it's been
Well,
a
it
little
seems-
bit unclear.
Seems like cities have plans, and that needs to happen in this city too, right? I mean, I think Eden Valley does, Watkins has,
I agree with you.
and I guess that's.
We're looking for a little more direction.
And they're maybe working on it.
Yep. So that's kind of what we're waiting really
Sure.
on them. And then the EDA is just gonna react to what David Tisk.
I had understood he was under a time restraint, so.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think his grant window opens in October.
So you got time.
Yep. Sometime, but, you know, but like I said, we're just gonna let Litchfield kind of play it out first and then EDA are gonna meet and decide what we would, right. Then I met with the Wright County Supervisor for Soil and Water for, North County, One Water, One Plan. And not a real lot of information there. I'm not even sure what the meeting was about, to be honest, after I met him. But, one thing that was interesting is Wright County Soil and Water have their AIS person in that part. And he said that would be a wise thing if
So they're
Meeker
under
does
the
that.
soil and water.
Yes, it's part of their division. He said that would be a wise thing. I said, we're talking about it and stuff, because he feels like, Soil and Water and Meeker might be, could use a little more extra help. Because they are, as far as this one watershed, one plan, they need to submit a few things where they have individuals who actually wanted things done for this watershed, but we haven't kind of followed through it on our side. And he thinks it's mostly due to maybe could use a little more help. And he thought the AIS person possibly would work well in our thing. Because right now AIS is separate, right? And most of his county, the AIS person is under the water and soil. And then that would give them, water and soil would give them extra help and vice
Who's
versa.
in control of the grant though then?
What's that?
Well, I mean, what goes, so,
It's all pass-through dollars.
right, but
So I mean,
when this came out a few years ago, right, planning and zoning kinda took it over. So I always worry about losing our input into how money is used, et cetera, when you do that. Are you following what I'm asking?
Yeah, I mean, the county is still the recipient of the money, and we would, I could imagine, similar to the way that we do with other things with soil and water, there would be a sub-grantee.
I don't like to lose control.
We would not have the same level of control that we have
We
today.
wouldn't have.
No, I mean, in the same way that we don't have complete control over what soil and water does.
And this would be their employee, or we would fund an employee from their office, or how would that?
I can say that,
Wouldn't be our dollar.
no,
I can say, we don't know.
So you're
We haven't
exploring
really
it.
had discussions yet.
well, and I had Joe Norman out look at a project that I'm working on, and we had a little discussion, actually, talked about this very topic, says Wright County and soil and water and the AIS. And he said he would actually very much entertain the idea, because he said, I'm getting more and more questions and stuff coming from lake associations and stuff in the soil and water, that he said, basically, I don't have the manpower to answer them and to adequately serve, which would be what you're seeing, or what they're saying too.
It's kind of a logical fit, really, to soil and water AISs. And the only reason I bring it up is because I thought I'd get some benefit out of this meeting, and I actually wanted to. Honestly, I didn't know much what he wanted to meet me about, but I was like, well, here's the supervisor of the Wright County Soil and Water. We were talking about it, and I just wanted to get his input in terms of how that works for them, another county. And he said, it's, like he said, lake associations call them because it's part of, soil and water, mostly soil now, but with the drought.
Sets in, or weighs in a lot of our meetings now, even with MCAL.
Yeah, I think.
It is a lot.
It is, yeah.
So I don't know.
I always just worry about, well, right now, we help our local, lake associations with things, and will that still keep up? What that money's used for.
You're still gonna have an AIS board.
Well, that's my question, I would want to.
You're not
You're
giving
right.
up, you're not
I would
giving up
wanna
that.
see more details about that.
But I don't know. I don't even know what course of action that is to take. Assuming that's through personnel or something.
We passed a resolution back in 2014, or the board here did, 2014 or 2016, putting it under planning and zoning.
When it first came out, that's how. we
Because
did it.
Kristen
I
Cody
think
took it.
before we even get
I
to
agree.
that stage, we would have to have some conversations with soil and water, and if it's the decision, or if it's the desire of the board, I would be more than happy to reach out to Joe and start having some of those conversations. But I think that we need to have those conversations first and figure out how could this potentially work? What impact does that have on our staff here?
And the only reason I bring it up is to bring the discussion forward, because I just thought, hey, I'd use him as a resource, and, some of the things he said made sense to me. Just bringing that up. I don't know what course of action,
I think the conversation should be moved forward, talking to Joe and just have to see where it leads.
Andrew and I had already discussed this, and I think Andrew had intended to.
I had talked to Greg a while back, a year ago or better, and he said that soil and water and AIS are a good fit. So, the discussion.
I would just need details.
Yeah, and
For personnel,
Oh,
et cetera.
no matter what,
Yeah, and the conversation that we had was that we might be getting a request from Soil and Water, and we have not received a request. And so I'm more than happy to initiate that
I mean, it'd be
conversation.
interesting to know how many counties do it that way, because I was here when this first started, and it's been a good source of help for our local lakes, and we wanna keep that, so. Right, are you done, Dan?
No, then,
Sorry.
holy, no, jeez,
trying to cut you
cut me off.
No.
I got a voice too, darn it.
No.
I'll save you some time. Then Beth and I had a meeting.
That's good, you can now speak for me.
We had a meeting with Woodland Center's CEO and CFO talking about our current POS, and I thought it was a good talk. And right now, where they stand is we basically just learned about the past POS and what was going on, and now I think the stage is Andrew and Paul
Yep.
Vukovich are gonna have a talk with.
We've shared
Ashley
information
Linda.
with the staff from Woodland Centers, and we have a meeting scheduled with them for next week.
And then, as Steve said, we're in the middle of budgets, and the one thing that I think is pertinent is of that 4.5 million of ARP, most of it that Andrew and Sharon were able to get for the county will be kind of more cash basis, where it's not necessarily pinholed. It's more of because of the formulas they use in terms of what our levies were in terms of that. We're able to basically get almost all the money as cash except for 26,000
Yep, we were able to identify the vast majority of it as revenue loss, and so that opens up what we can use that money for, provides the board with a lot of flexibility.
Which I thought was great news, so.
Widens our parameters greatly.
So when everybody is talking about ARP money and stuff.
Everybody's gonna want a bigger rate, but stop talking.
Oh, no. This is, but I think this is more, but
Government money works here.
I think it's a positive thing, because now when people make ARP requests, we only really have 26,000 that we really would have to give in terms of that. The rest is cash.
Oh, and we'll see the levy go on.
Well, and on that note, I was at Sweet Grove Township meeting last night, and they brought up the question whether they should take their money or not. I think at $185 per capita, it was like $80,000 to the township. And they were questioning whether they should or not, and, I told them, I said, I think you should, because.
Why wouldn't they?
I said, it's gonna stay at the state, the money's spent, alright, and it's either your street or Lake Street, is what I tell them all, I mean, you decide where you wanna spend it, but.
One of the questions I had, Cullenwood Township asked, last time they were able to turn it back to the county. But they haven't had any direction on that.
Correct. So we're actually hosting a meeting with the townships and the cities next Monday.
It's a
Good.
To help answer some of those questions.
Perfect.
The
That's
the
what they've been
interim
asking.
Oh, I
final
know that,
rule was
but at
very
least we
clear
get
in the
our
fact
county.
that the county
Well.
could transfer money to a township or a city.
We'll do a good job.
It's not particularly clear, it's not as clear that they could transfer backwards, but
My point is.
the general feeling of
if we do
NACO
any
and others is
construction,
that
we
that's
don't have to levy
possible.
for any of that.
And so, that's one of the conversations that we're gonna talk with them about.
Good.
And we're gonna talk with them about, calculating their revenue loss as well, so that opens up the money to spend on roads or whatever else they would like to spend.
They, Collinwood was just one example. They were asking, can somebody give us some help here? And so that's great. So they're bringing them in, or what's the plan?
Yeah, exactly. We sent out invitations, last week.
Perfect.
Cause Sweet
Thank you.
Grove
Yeah.
did not know that
Okay.
as of last night, they did
Oh,
not
they
know
did not
the
get it
meeting.
as of last night? So we mailed those out.
I believe that is the one that came back with I made an error in the
Oh.
address and I remade
Yeah.
it.
That one, okay, I picked the right one then.
Yeah.
I called 9 o'clock on the 9th,
Yeah, and
Upstairs.
she'll get it probably today.
okay, alright,
And I-
perfect, so.
I hope they really do take that offer, because I think it'll be really educational, and I think they'll feel a lot better about these dollars and how to get it in. I think it'll be huge for them.
And the parameters are so much, I mean, we got a couple of years,
Right,
to
so they don't have to.
apply and another couple to get it all in place. So, I mean, they have much, you can at least put it in your checkbook and think about it this time rather than.
Yeah,
You
the
know,
last time
yeah.
was ridiculous.
You can
It's all
only spend it
ridiculous.
on these three things or what have you, so. Alright, I'll quit, I'm done.
Couple of things. I reached out to UCAP because you remember they talked in that one meeting about an exemption for those 5 homes that were.
Oh, yes, yep, yep.
And I got a response from Tiffany, and I'll just read it. It's very short. We are working with the contractor who submitted a bid for the project to provide us a breakdown to show what part of the project is cost increase due to material and which part is due to prevailing wage. Minnesota Housing said they would consider allocating additional funds to the project when we provide that breakdown. So that's really good news. We will more than likely miss the window to begin construction this year, as it is generally takes some time to get those additional funds, but we are still trying to work towards the possibility of getting some units started this fall. So that's really good news. It will just depend on when the funding comes in. I had tried to follow up on the possibility of applying for the exemption, but never heard back. So, but I still think the chance that we might get those 5 units, either a couple of them started this fall or early next spring, is fantastic, because it's moving anyway. It's not just sitting there. The only other meeting I had was ProWorks. And learned a lot there. First of all, they got their new 12-passenger van from, they got it out of Atwater, and so now they're able to do some excursions with with these folks and taking them places and, you know, providing a little bit broader, things. But I learned something that I didn't know, and maybe you guys did. Have you heard of an employee retention credit from the federal government? Hadn't heard about it. The employee retention credit of $82,250 for Q2 of 2020 was completed on June 17th. It's a 941X by their accounting firm. So they're getting back $82,000 for the second quarter, and in the third quarter, they're getting $53,000 for last year. It's an employee retention credit. And they had to dance around it because they got PPP money too. So Beth, that may be something, and you guys may wanna share with any of the committees you're on that have employees, that there is a potential.
So when you say credit, tax credit, or
Oh, they don't
payroll
pay-
tax
they don't
credit,
pay
or?
taxes.
Well, per employee,
Oh, payroll tax.
I don't know.
Payroll tax. So-
941s are payroll tax, if I remember right.
But 941X is the
Wonder
form.
what the parameters are.
I don't know, Dale said that their accounting firm took care of it all for them. They didn't even know about it, and then they got these documents
Well,
saying
we
this
must
is what
have
they're
a
gonna get back, so
CPA.
something to kinda, you know,
Yeah, well,
put in the back of your mind, because if they're eligible, there may be several others that are eligible.
Sure.
Money-wise, right now, they're sitting pretty well, they're sitting on $616,000. However, they have two loans, one for $150 at 2.75% interest, and $141,000 loan that they pay 4.75% interest on. And so the decision was that we would pay off the $141,000 one and get rid of the higher interest. Then we got kind of the bad news. Dale Miller, who has been with them since October 6th of 1981, is retiring on December 31st. So we are going to have to hire a new executive director position. So we're in the process of working up the posting on that. It's gonna be probably gonna be a difficult one to find someone. You know, they currently pay their staff $12 an hour. And when you think about the challenges those folks have at work, you know, yes, there's a lot of gratification, because it's like he said, sometimes, you know, you get said good morning to 30 times, you know, because everybody there is happy. It's like a little family. But there's a lot of things there also that make working difficult, you know, and I really value those people for what they do for $12 an hour. But in his pay, right around $45,000 a year as the executive director. So we'll be putting out a posting, so if you know of anyone that's interested, please direct them to the website for ProWorks. We'd like to get a replacement in there so they can work a little bit with Dale prior to his retirement. But that was the only meeting I had, Danny.
Wow.
I know it.
We're saving money, Beth, we're saving money.
It's always good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I had three, so.
Oh, shoot.
So, you already talked about the one about the contract. I had supporting hands. That was kind of we went over the audit, that was fine. They've got about between 1.4 and 1.5 billion cash on hand. So every year I talk about, there's always a discussion about the county contribution going down, and they've decided to give $100,000 back to the counties. That'll be distributed by population. That's how we pay by population. So, we had a large discussion about payment for opting out of health insurance, which is becoming a county. There's one county there that gives them $500, no questions asked. They don't tell them where they have to go. Polk County, as a matter of fact. So if they decide not to take insurance, they get $500 more in their check every month, so.
Every month?
$500 a month. Wow. Unless I misunderstood them, but I thought I listened closely.
Can I ask, for a family coverage, what is the deduction per month?
The deduction?
Approximately, yeah, how much they taking out of an employee's paycheck?
For, hold on,
It's 300 and something a child, isn't it, coming up?
Yes, something like that.
I think we got an email from Prime Health about that the other day. But that's if you don't take, I suppose that's if you don't take family coverage, but it's treated like wages, so they pay tax on it. But that's a chunk of money, but I'm sure it still saves them money.
But, you know, Beth, if their spouse has got coverage through their work, this is a $500.
Well, I've never been for that, but what and certainly not to just, then I would think it should go into a retirement or something else, but I think of the counties there was a couple that are doing it themselves, and they would take it or they don't take it. But Supporting Hands is now having a discussion, cause we have people that opt out, so what do we do for them?
So for a family of 4, I think, it's about 1,100 a month is the total premium. And then the county share or the employee share on that is close to 350, 400 on that.
It's still cheap. It doesn't sound cheap to pay, but I mean, so, yeah.
Oh, I would say cash, and it's the old saying, cash in hand is better than. I mean, it is, I mean,
I'm sure it's a discussion.
for the county, to pay somebody 500, you're gonna come out ahead.
But would that affect if less people in our group then?
Well, I mean, we don't have a lot of, do we have a lot of people that opt out? I'm not suggesting we talk about that.
No.
I'm just saying the Supporting Hands is having that discussion right now. But,
I apologize, I think that's just for the employee.
right,
When you have to include the age of the spouse. So let's say a spouse is, 45, that's another $500. And if they have 2 children, that's $606. So you're looking at $2,100, $2,200 a month for a family of 4 coverage. That's the total share.
no, not that much. Is
Yeah,
it?
I think ours is 1,800.
And then we pay
That's
how
a family
much?
of 3.
The county, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's fine.
It's around 60 to 70% is what the county is paying on the premium.
And we had a Prime Health meeting and I didn't get there, Andrew was there, and our raise is gonna go up, what, 5% or
About 5%, 4 to 5% depending on the.
So, and that may sound like a lot, but years ago in the co-op, 10 and 12 were the norm.
Well, and
So-
the thing that I found, that I learned that's interesting is the reason that our rate is only going up 5% or 4% is because our rates were so much higher than the rest
That's
of the
right.
pool. So the average across the pool is around 6.5%, which is what they're shooting for. So there are counties that are paying
Right.
closer to 8% because they were lower, so they're trying to get everyone to
But
that
that's the
median.
goal, is to get everybody,
We already were getting screwed, so now we're just not.
now it's not as bad.
Yeah.
So what we should expect is that those rates will go up over time once we get to that average.
I think as long as I've been a commissioner when we were in the co-op, I never saw less than 11 or 12% on our health. And PEEP was always cheaper, and the police, have PEEP. And I'd say, why can't we do PEEP? No, you can't do that. Well, now everybody's doing PEEP, but no, theirs are going up, so it's a never-ending issue.
Yeah, so just for my example, the county, the overall thing is $1,800. I think my share is 8. County pays 1,000. You give a $500 check, you're saving $500 somewhere. And
So that would mean if we don't take.
I don't know if it's that simple of a math or not, but then what it does is gives a person the incentive if their spouse is working.
That's right.
They just do the math.
Insurance.
Yeah, take their
Well,
insurance.
and the other piece to it is too, then HR doesn't need to explain all this and go through this with every employee too, the time, the management piece.
We also have an.
There's so many options.
We also have an obligation, though, people need to
Oh,
have
no,
some
I'm
insurance.
not, I know.
You can say $500, but then if you don't direct where I would be all for it if it went into a health savings or into the, not all for it, don't get me wrong, but I could be better convinced.
So I've seen it elsewhere where an individual is required to come in and provide proof of insurance. So if your spouse has insurance and you choose to use your spouse's insurance, and then you receive this benefit, the, whatever dollar amount it is, and they still receive it as part of their paycheck, because the idea is that they're using that to help offset the cost of the
Exactly.
premium elsewhere, but they're not receiving it as a health benefit, it's just additional pay. But
Right.
the county in that case would receive a significant financial benefit, because we're not putting up the cost of the rest of that person's.
But like I said, I do think we have some responsibility. If we ever do that, and I'm not suggesting we do, we still have some responsibility. So.
I heard her say all four.
No, no.
Oh, holy crap.
And Steve, Beth and I
This could be a revelation here. Oh, my goodness.
Beth and I'd get a $500 a month raise.
There you go.
So,
We had a previous commissioner that brought that up every year and said, I don't get health insurance, right? And I don't know how many commissioners do. That was always kind of thorn in his side, cause well, take the health insurance.
Yeah.
Okay, so that, and then I had a shelter meeting, we had a, presentation by Thrivent. We got some money, they're trying to find it, not a lot of money, but invest, cause like everyone else, the interest rate is low. They're looking for a new van, searching for a cargo van, I believe, with all-wheel drive, which is a problem. Dog adoptions are down, and normally they're up this time of year, so we don't know if it's because of the heat or because of COVID, or if everybody adopted a dog during COVID, and now they don't need one. We couldn't figure it out. And then we adopted.
still get denied, don't ask.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
No, I had a discussion, that wasn't at our show.
No, I know, but boy,
We believe in outdoor.
our dog is so fat and happy,
Are
gets
you
to run
sure?
around the
I'm
grass.
gonna have to stop
Like
out
going-
and inspect.
Yeah.
Too fat.
Yeah, too fat, I mean,
Come on, Danny, get some
We
feedback.
passed our
Yeah.
code of conduct policy, and that's what I have. I'll look for a motion to adjourn,
I'll make it.
made by Steve and seconded by.
second.
We're adjourned.
So we're all set on the picnic, everything is cool. Set it cool. Have a good.
I got my job of what I'm supposed